What's going on, everybody? Cleepus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, I'm going to be giving you 5 reasons why you should buy the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G. This is one of the newer T-Mobile Revvl phones, and while I honestly do have some mixed feelings about it, there's no denying that with a full price of only $169, this phone does provide quite a bit of value for the money. So I'm going to be going over 5 of my favorite things about it to help you decide whether or not it's the right phone for you. Now, before we go any further, as always, I do want to remind you to hit that subscribe button. And in case you want to learn more about this phone, I will be linking to several other videos about it in the description, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. My first reason why you should buy the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G is the processor. Now, on one hand, this is definitely not the fastest phone in the world. I mean, compared to a $300 to $500 mid-range phone, like a Samsung Galaxy A53 5G for example, the T-Mobile Revvl 6 is not going to be nearly as fast. But like they always say, you do get what you pay for. And with the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G, with 4GB of RAM and the MediaTek Dimensity 700 processor, for the money, the performance we're getting here is honestly really impressive. For your more basic daily activities like web browsing, social media, streaming content like videos and music, and maybe even some light mobile gaming, you are going to get a pretty good experience here. And again, for what it is, this phone is actually decently fast. Now, I will say with this phone, things are a little bit more buggy than I was hoping for. Like for example, the camera app does crash from time to time, stuff like that. But honestly, for a phone under $200, that kind of thing does happen from time to time. So it's not too surprising. So again, in general, when it comes to the actual performance and speed of the phone, as long as you're not going to be on your device 24/7, doing more demanding activities like high performance mobile gaming, for example, performance-wise, you will most likely get a pretty good experience here. Now, I did run a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on this phone, and here are the scores I got. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and comparing your results to these, and that's going to give you a better idea of whether or not this phone's going to be an upgrade for you, because depending on what you're coming from, it may or may not be. But again, in general, if you're looking for a more affordable phone, as in under $200 type affordable, but you still want 5G connectivity and decently good performance for daily activities, I do think the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G will be a pretty good choice. My second reason why you should buy the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G is the battery. Now, with this phone, we're getting a 4500 mAh battery. This supports 15-watt fast charging. Now, if you've been shopping around for phones for a little while now, I know what you're probably thinking. A 4500 mAh battery, while still being decently large, isn't exactly the largest battery you can get. And while that may be true, in my experience, the battery life you get with this phone is actually still really good. In general, no matter what you're doing with your phone, unless you're playing a game or watching a movie for hours and hours, the battery we get here is most likely going to at least last throughout the day without needing to be charged until the very end. And honestly, realistically, I feel like most people are going to be able to charge their phone for at least a little while throughout the day. But that being said, of course, even if you don't, while not quite having a 5000 mAh battery, the battery life we get with this phone again is really good. And with 15-watt fast charging, even if you only get a couple minutes every day to charge your phone, the charging speeds are really good, so you'll be able to make the most of it. So again, in general, if you are looking for a more affordable phone that has a great battery, then this phone is going to be a pretty good option. Now, my third reason why you should buy the T-Mobile Revvl 6 is the software. Now, with this phone, we are currently getting Android 12, which granted, considering we are going into Android 13 at this point, is still not the latest version of Android, but considering this is definitely a more affordable entry-level phone, it could be a lot worse. Now, I'm not 100% sure what T-Mobile's software support's like, but if I had to guess, I would say it's probably at least a little bit better than something like Cricket, for example. So while I don't know this for sure, I would say there's a pretty good chance we will eventually see Android 13 with this phone. So in general, on one hand, if the software is really important to you and you want to make sure to have the latest version of Android as it comes out, then you're probably just going to want to get something a little bit higher end in general. If you're really just looking for an entry-level phone that has a software that's at least decently newer and runs pretty well, then considering this phone at least does have Android 12, you most likely will be satisfied here. My fourth reason to buy the T-Mobile Revvl 6 is the materials and build quality. Now, when it comes to phones under $200, honestly, the materials and especially the build quality can be a little sketchy. Now, this is kind of a given, but pretty much every entry-level phone, including this one for that matter, is going to be made pretty much entirely of plastic, except for, of course, the glass display. But with a lot of phones like this, it usually feels pretty low quality. Phones like this tend to not have a ton of weight to them, and in general, they tend to feel pretty cheap. But with the T-Mobile Revvl 6, although the design itself really isn't anything special, in fact, compared to pretty much every other phone in this price range, it essentially looks exactly the same. When it comes to the actual materials, the plastic actually feels pretty solid and high quality. The buttons feel solid, the phone doesn't feel like it's gonna fall apart, and in general, the build quality is actually really good. In addition to this, the phone does have a decent amount of weight to it, and for what it is, it honestly does feel really nice, especially compared to the competition. So while the materials and build quality are probably not a reason why you would go out of your way to buy this phone, if you do happen to get it, then keep in mind, this is definitely a nice benefit. And finally, my fifth reason to buy the T-Mobile Revvl 6 is the security features. Now, this might not sound like much, but the T-Mobile Revvl 6 does actually have face unlock and a fingerprint scanner right here on the power key, and while at this point in 2022, or 2023 at this point, having both a fingerprint scanner and face unlock is more or less an expectation, keep in mind that again, this is a $169 phone, and in this price range, there are plenty of phones that either only have one or the other, and some that don't even have either, so having two different options besides a pin to unlock your phone is definitely a nice thing. But with that being said, let's go ahead and give the fingerprint scanner a try. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you can see, real fast and responsive, no issues at all. So it definitely is nice that we're getting these features here. But those were my 5 reasons to buy the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G. In general, while there's nothing really crazy impressive about this phone, and for that matter, it does have quite a few drawbacks that I will be going over in a separate video, if you're looking for a really affordable 5G device that has good performance and really all the features you need for basic daily activities, I do think this phone will be a pretty good option. Now once again, in case you do want to learn more about this device, I will be linking to several other videos about it in the description, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Cleepus Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.